Okay. So now it is April 11th of 2023. It's like something like 6 in the morning. I've already been up for a couple of hours. And I'm already tired. But I have to start my day. So I thought I'd do a sit-down video, even though I planned to be in the kitchen. But we'll sit here and we'll talk about some of this little bit here. And we're going to talk about social workers. So that's the title. Let's talk about social workers / I don't know. Too many things to talk about. They're all important, right? So anyway. Okay. First thing. I don't know, people. I don't know if that laser surgery helped. Seems a little more cloudier, and I can feel the eye. I can feel it. And when you feel your eyes, you have an issue. You're not supposed to feel your eyes. Oh, sure, if you scratch it or something, yeah, or whatever, right? But eventually when it goes away, you don't feel nothing. This one, I feel like something's got a hold of it like this. I wouldn't say I got quite punched in the eye, but if I was to be punched in the eye, it'd probably feel tight. And I stopped taking one of those drops, the one I was doing 2 times a day that was really making my nose run, and it was making me really dizzy, and oh my God, and I wanted to sleep more. And since I stopped taking them, I haven't been nearly as dizzy. I get dizzy every now and then because my eyes don't work correctly, but this other stuff, I don't know what the hell that shit was. And he tried 2 different kinds of bottles with the similar medication, and they both did the same thing. So, what I'm saying is, I have to comb my hair. Put it back up in a ponytail before I start my day, because if I don't, it will stay like that, and it will just get worse and worse and worse till I comb out my hair and I get these big gobs of hair, right? You don't even know how much hair I lose in this house, man. For years, you'd think I'd be bald by now. Right? Anyway, I don't worry about it. Okay, so what was I talking about? I don't remember. Oh yeah. So, now that I'm down to the 1 drop, we know that will bring me to a pressure of anywhere between, 22 and 27? Well, these doctors want me in the low teens. So, you're playing Russian roulette with that pressure, just squeezing, right? Knocking out another octave nerve, to which it would get brighter for me. It would get brighter for me before it went completely black. Because different octave nerves bring in different light spectrums. That's the only thing that I can think of. Yeah, and as you start losing your light spectrums, your ability to see different light spectrums, that's when it becomes looking like a fog, and it starts to glare like a bright white light. And everything merges in together because you're not picking up the different light spectrums because the nerves aren't there to do it. So, I don't know. I feel like it's more brighter versus more defined. Okay. Yeah, either or. You can't stop progress. Alright. Okay, so I got a phone call, right, from this person from the children's hospital. They left a message. I called them back. And it turns out they're a social worker. I said, social worker? Oh, so why are you calling me? Right? And she went on to say that the doctor that's going to be operating on Amari's hips basically created a new position for her. I said, a new position? I don't know if this is a position within the whole group of families that are having to go through what I'm going through with Amari. So this social worker isn't just assigned to me. She's assigned to everybody facing the same situation within that department where hip surgery occurs within the children's hospital. Very at arm's length, right? Okay. But why now? Why are you calling now? And it's because they're working towards getting ready for surgery for Amari. That's why. Because after Shimei died, and Tisha and I had to figure out what was wrong with him, because it hadn't quite been determined yet. We knew his eyes were starting to cross, right? We knew he was a late bloomer when it came to crawling and that kind of stuff, right? We just thought he was a late bloomer. We had no idea that he had baby floppy syndrome. That's something the doctors should have picked up on. That's something that the nurses should have picked up on. And they had months to do it, and they didn't do it. Okay. So then they wanted their MRI, right? Because now it's on a hunt to figure out what's wrong with Amari. Was it chromosomal? Or was it, well, chromosomal, it's not so much that it's genetic. Well, chromosomal is genetic, right? Is genetic. But if there is, you know, those children that were born with that taldamine or temaldamine or whatever drug that doctors used to give pregnant women, and a lot of the babies came out without arms and legs and that kind of thing. That's not genetic. That's not chromosomal. That was a direct result of a bad drug that interfered with the development of children, right? And once that was determined, they took the drug off the market. But it never did, you know, correct what happened to those children because of that drug. Okay. So they did the chromosomal tests to rule out that it wasn't genetic, what was wrong with him. They did their series of how the body metabolizes itself, because some diseases come with metabolism, right? It attacks the metabolism of a child. That's a result of a disease versus a defect in the chromosome, right? So they kind of went through that series and ruled out that. And then they wanted the MRI. Well, they wanted all three procedures or whatever they did all at one time. And at that time, the doctor that I was dealing with, which was a hip doctor of sorts, or maybe he was just the head pediatrician for the Surrey Memorial Hospital at that time. I don't know if he's still the head or not, but either or, he is. When we took Amari for his MRI, there was an assigned social worker that worked on the floor within the whole section of pediatrics, right? That's like par and parcel. That's not a new program. That's not something new, okay? I already went through that. And so when this woman called me up and told me who she was, you know, I'm like trying to relate it to something, right? Obviously it's being provoked because of cerebral palsy and, you know, the cause and effect and solutions. And I already went through this because when they were doing the MRI, there was an on-floor social worker that would be pretty much in the same position as this one that I'm talking with now, right? Asking me how she can be supportive to the family, right? In terms of, what's coming when it comes to hip surgery. So it's, I just told her, well, it's not like I have a choice. If I say no, even though I'm in disagreement, because I am, right? If I say no, put my heels to the ground, say no, 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 take me to court if that's what you want. Take it to that extreme. I mean, they don't even have to take it to court. All they have to do is call medical negligence and Greta the social worker. Right? And now Greta's fighting with me. Right? And they're going to take him and they're going to do it anyway. Right? What are they going to do? Ostracize Tisha? Or are they going to turn her against me? I mean, there's only two cards they can play, or the third one is just put him in foster care and repeat what they did, like they did when they took Andre, right? Isolate Tisha, villainize her, right? Make her think that there's something wrong with her, right? As she has to prove herself in family court that she's capable of looking after Amari. In the meantime, the clock is ticking because time is their weapon, right? Amari's in foster care for 18 months, 15 months, 12 months, and when it goes in front of a judge, the judge's going to say, oh, but Amari's happy. He's happy. He's been there for 12 months. He's been there for 15 months. He's been there for 8. We don't want to disrupt his growth, right? But in the meantime, he's completely in, the care of the ministry, because by then he would have been apprehended from me, okay, right? And because he's in their care, they can do any kind of research study on him that they want, people. Bottom line. Plus, whoever's looking after him is going to get, well over $3,000 a month in income that is tax-free based on the legislation around that system. So do you honestly think I want to take it down that road? No. I have to submit to, he's having surgery now. Whether you like it or not, Miss Chorney. I told her that. Not like that way, but, if I say no, we know what's going to happen. Like, don't even, suggest that it wouldn't happen. Look how much hair. See? Almost every day, every second day. That's how much hair I lose. Don't be surprised if I don't go bald. Seriously. Yeah. That's because I live a rough life. That's why. So, I just basically told her, like, my role in Amari's life at this point right now is just building in the safety nets, right? In terms of, doing the routine with the daycare 2 times a week where he's with Tisha. Obviously I would like Andre to go because Andre is that eagle eye. Andre's been with him since he's a baby. Andre knows mostly what to look for and how to react. Right? I mean, some things he still has to, like, what's that sound? That doesn't sound right, Like, there's something, no, he's not talking, that's something else. That will come. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, oh boy. Yeah, Andre's pretty good at that. So, and then, when it comes time to surgery, well, depends. I mean, obviously I can't see wounds very well. Can't even see my own, people. If I had something going on here with an infection with little red lines crawling, because that's when you're getting into your blood poisoning, I wouldn't be able to see it. Tisha would come to me and say, what's going on with your hand, Mom? What's going on? I'd be like, I don't know. What do you see? right? So, you know, in a situation like that, you know, there's probably Tisha will have to either come here to the house every day. Every day. I mean, I've got Marcane and Marina downstairs, but at the end of the day, it would have to fall on Tisha's shoulders, really, right? And she'd have to come to the house every day to some point or another and help me with Amari, because don't forget, they're going to leave him like this. And this is what I told this social worker. For everything one good that he has to say in terms of a doctor saying, well, this is what we're going to do to prevent that, that over there seems to be like a compound of more than double, triple, like in 100%. So if the doctor is saying, and this is how he's kept saying this to me, people, well, we're going to do it to prevent pain. We're going to do it to prevent pain. We're going to do it to prevent pain because the pain is coming, because the hip is coming out of the joint, right? So therefore, we need to do it now. The pros behind that is the fact that Amari is young, and with young bones, they fuse together faster, they regrow, whatever. But that's not to say that there is no complications once you disturb what's there by an operation. Okay. But with that comes more risk in terms of pain. So you cut into them, you're going to create the pain right there. And I told this to this woman named Rachel. I said, they're going to drug them up to mask the pain. That's the first thing. They can't come to me and telling me that they're going to cut them to prevent pain when they're using medication, opiates at that, more than likely, to mask the pain that they created to prevent that pain. But by that one act alone, now Mari is sitting like this for up to 8 months to a year without having to go in a second time to clean a wound that got infected, or to reattach whatever plate that they put on because somehow it, you know, it snapped, whatever, slipped, whatever, and they need to go back in and operate again to reattach it, so that they're hoping, there is no guarantee, they are hoping that his bones will fuse back together and grow based on his age and the physiological aspect of a child's body healing faster than, say, someone my age. Okay. Right? So, you know, I mean, okay. Yes, there will probably come a time. This doctor gave me 10%, as 10% average out of, for all the kids that he's come into contact with and that he knows about, blah, 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 blah. You know, what is the percentage of where kids just never feel pain? Because he's like chasing this pain. He uses that as an excuse to corner me to where I have no choice but to agree, because if I don't, I lose my grandson, basically. Well, the rest of my family is being punished for it because they won't be allowed to see him because it's too disruptive for him. And I know this for a fact because this is how they did it with Andre. That's the system. Okay? I lost track because I got mad. I'm starting to go like this. I forgot what I was talking about. I got so mad with it, people. You don't even know. Anyway, I'm trying to explain to this woman that I'm not as dumb as I sound or look or whatever, and she, you know, and it's not even that I tried to explain that. She brought it up. Well, you sound like you're a social worker, or you could be a social worker, and I just said simply, I've read a lot over the years. I definitely think things over more than once. I've raised 5 kids, you know, I've done other things in the community or whatever, you know, I'm not completely I've experienced certain things, you know, whatever, right? And, you know, but at the end of the day, oh yeah, I was talking about the pain. The pain. So the doctor uses the excuse as preventing pain to create pain that he can conveniently mask over with his drugs, not just for a short time, but for a long time, as they add on more drugs to compensate for what those drugs are creating. In other words, if they give him muscle relaxants, he's going to be more prone to drool than what he does already, but that's okay, because this doctor over here will prescribe a medication to start drying out Amari's mouth so he doesn't drool, to mask over what the other drug does, as they keep him like this, completely mentally frustrated and fucking broken. He's not learning anything. What is he learning? Waiting for his next dose? Like, seriously, people. He doesn't guarantee that there won't be a secondary infection. Not just an infection where you take an antibiotic, but an infection where you have to go in and operate again to clean it out. Okay? He can't guarantee that whatever plate or pin or whatever he's trying to do isn't going to pop off, where he's got to go back in there and reattach it. So that's 2 negatives, right? Well, 3, because we've got the drugs. Okay? As soon as the operation happens, in comes the drugs. Okay? Then comes in the possibility of an infection that he may or may not have to go back in and operate on again, which just prolongs this situation, right? And then if it's not that, it's the pin that popped at 7 months. Everything's going good, looking good. Amari's a rambunctious kid. You know, he's got over the, you know, he does have his good days, his happy days, and he happens to do something and poof, there it goes, it pops. So what, doctor just gonna go in and operate again? Start the process all over again? Yeah, okay. That's, you know, that's what I told that woman. It's not, there's more negatives than there are positives around to what this doctor is rushing for. I asked her, why is he not talking about hip replacement? I've never once ever heard him say, let's think about the possibility of giving Amari hip replacement. Speaking of that, let me just go check on Amari, because he's quiet. And we know he's a Houdini baby. Just laying there listening, all cozy. Only he throws his blankets off all the time. Drives me freaking nuts. He's been up a couple of hours. He can probably take a little nap. Anyway, so operation equals drugs. Quite possibly another operation to clean out a wound that got infected. Also, could be a possibility to have to operate because the pin unplugged itself, right? And it needs to be reattached. There is no guarantee that Amari won't need it when he's 12. So whatever this doctor is doing isn't permanent. It's not. Right? It's going to happen again. More than likely. So that's 4, right? And then he might just simply die on the operating table because the doctor comes and slices a major artery. Oops. Oh, well. Sorry, Miss Chorney, Amari's died, but don't worry about it because you consented to it. Well, I don't consent to it, people. You see, that's the thing. Anything that I am doing with these individuals is under duress. Direct duress, which makes me anti-authoritarian, combative, supposedly reasonable, erratic, right? Poke the bear, get her pissed off, right? Snipe in one here, snipe in another one there, bring in one from the back. What do you think's going to happen? Right? right? I told her that's why I send in Tisha. She's a social butterfly. She gets along with everybody, right? She doesn't put people on guard, you know? Where I walk into a room and we don't know, like, because if I'm right, I try and be diplomatic, and, you know, I don't necessarily blow a gasket under those situations, but if it got real bad, oh man, people, we're right back with Uncle John, with me running down the hall with the freaking nurse saying, wait for the social worker, on the day that they medically kidnapped Uncle John, put him in that fucking hammock. And when I walked into the room, I said, where's John? And this haggly old looking crow came to me, was walking, well, get out of here, you're being disrespectful, John's not here. No, I seen the fucking hammock, I seen all the people around the hammock, they drugged him up, they put him in that hammock, people, and they took him on the fucking ferry, and when he woke up, as he was crossing over on the ferry, he started having a nervous breakdown, and his nasty, skanking, fucking professional nurse sister that's been working for the province of British Columbia, Canada, for, oh, I don't know, 40 years, 50 years, something like that. She rushed him to the Victoria General Hospital and then sat there with those social workers and said, look how I found him. And then all those social workers proceeded to help that bitch, Eleanor Gilding, to steal John's money as they ruined his family. And I'm expected to trust Rachel being sent in by a doctor that works for a research study than he does before my grandson? My grandson was manufactured to fill a slot so that dude even has a fucking job. I told that to Rachel. Maybe not in that way, but I told her exactly what I think about their research study. So, back to hip replacement, and I am getting mad, and that's not what I wanted to do. I said, why is this dude not asking or suggesting hip replacement? Because with hip replacement, apparently, it's a pretty common procedure, people. A lot of adults, once they hit 50, start getting hip replacement surgery. The numbers are higher than you would think. Oh yeah, I didn't realize that many people got hip surgery, but they do. So when it comes to hip replacement, the difference between Amari and a person who can walk is when they have hip replacement, they like to get into the physiotherapy right away and get the person up and walking, because it's just better for general healing, right? So, you know, physiotherapy is introduced really early into it after surgery, and the recuperation time for people with hip replacement isn't really that bad. Now, I'd have to go back and reread and just double check the numbers, because I haven't done that for a while, and it's not a priority to remember these things. All I know is statistically the recovery rate is very good, and it's done in a timely manner. In other words, what takes maybe, we'll just say 3 to 6 months, no, less than that. No, it's less than that. People are walking within weeks from hip replacement. Maybe not a lot, but they're up and about already on their road to recovery. And yes, once they're fully recovered, there is the possibility of having to do it again, but it really depends on the age. The younger the patient that gets hip replacement, you know, if they're now 20 years past, then yeah, maybe they might need to have another one. But the technology is also different, right? So either or is it, there's a lot of people that get it done to them, and the recovery rate is good, right? And so is the survival rate. Okay. Whereas with children like Amari, who don't stand and walk and that kind of thing, It's so how do you build in that physiotherapy, right? That's the issue. And this is all being done through public health care, okay? I came across a study where somebody gave children with severe cerebral palsy, like Amari is on the spectrum of 1 to 5, he's a 5, hip surgery to compensate for whatever happens to these children, as you know, because their bodies curl, right? Or in Amari's case, his right leg is popping out more and more, but that's because he's very active and he strains himself, and he uses his limbs to however is good for him to get to where he wants to go. So the left side of his body is extremely strong, where the right side is very weak and even somewhat emaciated. That's kind of like, you can see muscle tone more on the left leg where you see nothing on the right leg, right? And because he wants to move, he uses his right leg to the best of his ability, so it's more of a crutch, so that he can go like this and then pull, right? So with that, the hip is coming out faster. So of course the doctor's going like this, and now he's assigning me social worker. Right? And I'm not supposed to be on guard, right? You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. But I'm going to, tell her the way I see it. Tell her the way my experience, based, I'm not telling her my experiences, but based on my experiences, this is, like, there's too many negatives with this hip surgery than there is to the positive. One aspect, we're preventing pain. No, it seems to me you're opening up a whole book of nothing but pain. Pain that will never stop. Because whatever you did to him when he was 6, you can do it again when he's 12. Or maybe it might be when he's 18. Or maybe you'll come to that caregiver when he's 25 and say, no, we need to cut into his hips again because whatever we did when he was 6 didn't fucking work. But that's okay. We just kept him drugged up from age 6 until age 25 until we figured it out. Because he's under that research study. Right? I told that social worker, what kind of doctor says, oh, when it gets real bad, what I have no choice but to do, is cut him open, cut the bone, and take the bone and throw it in the fucking garbage can. Literally, that's what he told me. Minus the F-U-C-K. No? No, I told that social worker, he just didn't throw it in the garbage can. It went for grafting, for crying out loud. Waste not, want not. We know the healthcare system loves body parts. They don't care where they come from, as long as they get them. He doesn't explain to me after he cuts off the bone and throws it in the garbage, what does that mean for Amari? What happened to those children after he did that? I'd like to know. Maybe it's a better alternative than what Amari's got to look forward to based on those risk factors. Right? If you got 10% risk factor that he's going to get an infection after the fact, if you've got a 20% risk factor that the doctor needs to go in there and reoperate to attach the pin that somehow came loose, you're at 30% now of a risk to something. And then we've got, oh geez, what's the other one? 30% chance, 20% chance, we'll give it a low 10% chance. I mean, it could be 30 for all I know, but we'll just say it's 10%. Where whatever he does with Amari at 6 years old doesn't mean that he won't do it when he's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so now we're at 40% chance that he ain't done cutting into my grandson. Okay? Seems to me he's making a path for it. He's guaranteeing that budget. Okay? As he capitalizes off of a research study that he gets extra funding for. But keep in mind, as soon as one kid falls off the grid due to death, well, before they can keep the money that they've got right now coming in under that research study, they need to follow up on filling the gap. And where did they get that from? They get that from hospitals when children are being born and injured at the time of their birth, as the government works hard to cover up that fact. Because as soon as those children are born, they're signed up to that research study. The parents won't know it until they're blindsided by it and then find themselves in a position like me. That makes me angry because life shouldn't be like that. Right? So anyway, I told her I understood her position because I can equate it to that social worker that was when Amari went for his MRI, right? It's to be expected, I would think, right? You know, the hospital isn't just going to allow a whole bunch of strangers to show up one day, hang around for a while with all these emotions flying around without somebody in there trying to mitigate the situation. And that's the position that she put herself into at this point, people, right? Because you don't know when it's going to explode, okay? Because of pressure, whether it's warranted or not. Okay? So anyway, she's going to make inquiries for me as to why the doctor hasn't suggested hip replacement, because I brought to her attention that I came across a study that I probably have it printed out somewhere in my big mounds of paper as if I can see it anymore, but where they did operations of hip replacement on children like Amari, but only they were older adolescents, like in between, well, it was like 18 or 20 or something to like 25 or something, right? That age group, that's where they were doing the hip replacements, but the issue around that was they couldn't get up and participate in that physiotherapy. So therefore, that was something that was kind of, I guess you could say, frowned upon by surgeons by saying that, well, because they couldn't participate in the physiotherapy, they wouldn't respond well to hip replacement, where in fact, when they did get his hip replacement and they had physiotherapy through private care in partnership with public, it wasn't just a public thing. There was private, so they must have gave personal, private physiotherapy to do the actual leg work or whatever, I don't know, or something. And point is there was very few deaths, right? It wasn't more than the average of anything that children with cerebral palsy faced. And the results in terms of healing were good. A lot of them responded really well, right? But the death rate was low. What? See, what? The death rate was low, right? And the healing time wasn't as extreme as they thought it was going to be. And it is a viable option. But it's something this doctor has never once ever mentioned. And he runs fear through me by saying, well, if we don't do it, I'm not going to have a choice but to cut the bone and throw it into the garbage can. As if. That's a fear tactic, people. That's not health care. Okay? He's trying to cause emotional trauma. Just so that, you know, it's just another bag of tricks. right? So where this all leaves me, I don't know. Because it's not like I'm lurking around. There's people around me lurking, but I'm not lurking. I told her I'm doing what I'm doing. I told her I was canning, I'm canning 2 chickens, bone and all. I'm hoping to get at least 4 full jars. I might get 5, maybe. Right? Half a chicken in each quart-sized jar. That's what I'm going to try and do. For mental therapy. Right? And, you know, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Right? So in the meantime, the next video will be with me in the kitchen. Just doing those few little top-offs. So I did get my my jars with the lug lids. But I don't think those jars is as big as this. Okay. I bought one when I went out the other day just to see. Right? Because in some instances it would be cheaper just to stock up on these things versus trying to go off and can them yourselves. Right? As a matter of fact, Andre and I, we did some calculations, and I would have gotten more for my money if I just would have went to a grocery store and slapped down $300 and bought as many of these as I could at one time. Versus buying the jars with the lug lids, having them mailed to the house, and then having to think what I'm going to do to fill them up inside. Right? Because the jars themselves were kind of expensive. But because I can multi-purpose those jars after the fact and use them for ground up fruit like strawberries or blueberries or whatever. When you go to and buy big batches full, you just put them into a puree, put them into the jars, freeze them, and then you can just let them unthaw in the fridge and use them for your smoothie drinks or whatever, right? You know? So therefore I justified the purchase of the jars because they're a nice sized jar. Mine are a little smaller, I would think, maybe I don't know, maybe a third smaller than what these are. So what I'm saying is we know that at some point I'm going to be making some kind of salsa sauce with those spicy things that I bought. And I specifically chose lug lids because underneath them they're supposed to have something slightly different than what's underneath regular canning jars, so that the acid doesn't start to eat through. But that's not to say you're not going to get that oxidization under the lid, even in these jars where you take off the lid and it's starting to look black underneath there and you thinking, ooh, there's something wrong with it. No, not necessarily. It's the fact that oxidization is going to oxidize even on these types of jars if they sit for years and years before you unopen it, before you open it, right? Compared to a jar with a standard canning lid, you'll get the same effect. Right? The longer the jar sits, the more chance it's going to get oxidization. The difference between these lids and the other lids is those other lids are not stable when it comes to rust, where these ones are more stable and have a better chance of not rusting over a long period of time than a standard canning lid because of the way they're made and with that special plastic that's underneath it. Okay? Always try and label your products when you can. Because you get to the point where you have something sealed in a jar, but you don't know if it's butter. It could be ghee. I doubt it's coconut butter, but maybe it is, because they all look to be pretty much the same color. I won't know until I open it, I would think. That was supposed to be a joke. And then, after I do my chicken, in the next little while, had something else here. I might have to go look for it because I don't see it here. Oh, I moved it, and that's not something I want to move. Oh boy. Hold on a minute. Okay, so we'll just finish up with this video. I gotta get on with my day. I'm gonna have to use this baby rail and just somehow strap it on. He's purposely going out of his way to flip himself over so he can get to the edge there so he can slide himself down and get his ass on the floor. I feel like I'm dealing with a child that is in his terrible twos right now. Yeah, he's being purposely mischievous, you know, quite determined. Right? And definitely wants to explore, right? So, but I don't know. Let's see. And we'll see how it goes. Right? I'll cage him in, and the next thing you know, I'll come there and he'll be standing there holding onto the rail. Or at least maybe pull himself up halfway. I could see him doing that. Yeah. Just as you think. Yeah. Okay, so anyway. So we know I want to can Alfredo sauce as a just like I did with the bacon and stuff, just as a condiment, I guess you could say, right? Where, you know, you gotta figure out what the household could use fairly regularly, where it's convenient to, you know, make and have access to and replace, right? Right? So Alfredo sauce, I don't know. I'm watching YouTube, right? Lots of women are canning Alfredo sauce. Now, this is not something, honestly, that I ever buy or even use for that matter, and I don't even know what it tastes like. I don't even know if I'd like it. I just know a lot of other people do, and it's high in nutrients, and it's shelf stable, right? Okay. But anytime you're canning milk, apparently, you have to do it for short periods of time when it comes to processing it. Otherwise, it starts to caramelize, and it thickens up, and its taste changes, right? And I guess it's it's the same as cheese, right? I'm not no expert on any of this, okay? So in the meantime, I am going to attempt to make two different kinds here, right? From people that I seen on YouTube make it. One recipe I managed to print out, so we'll see. And that one just requires Parmesan cheese, sour cream, heavy whipping cream, garlic, right, and salt, I guess, right? Where the other one is, like another person, the way she makes hers, is with half and half cream, milk, Parmesan cheese, cream cheese, butter, garlic, and probably salt. So completely different ingredients, and so I'm going to attempt to make two different kinds, right? But I don't know. And then of course I'll make them in pint-sized jars, this size. It's recommended by these women that you don't do it in a quart size because for whatever reason it doesn't go through the canning process very well, right? Whereas if you leave it between a pint and a half pint, you'll have better success. And they pointed out that when you go to a grocery store and you buy it commercially, chances are you'll never find it more than a pint in terms of size, usually. Right? So, you know. So I bought these just to taste them. Now there was some there that were like $7.99 a jar. I'm like, oh, I'm not paying that because, you know, right? But I kind of want to get a feel for what I'm supposed to be looking for in terms of before I can it and before I put it in the jar. Now, mind you, they're going to have different ingredients. What I'm trying to say is, though, it is something that you're capable of doing, and there's enough people that have done it. The secret to any canning is bring it up to a boil, right? Once you get it to that boil, turn down the heat to a medium-low boil with a lid on it, right? Keep it, you know, stir, whatever. Let sit for a while with the lid on low as it boils so it doesn't burn on the bottom, okay? And then after that, just stir it around and you're fine. Unless, of course, you open up your jar and it's freaking rancid, and you can see that it's rancid because you can see that it's molded up or something, or you can smell it for sure. Then you know there's definitely something wrong with it. Okay. And then, of course, once opening, even if you weren't to use the whole jar in one sitting, you'd put the rest of it into the fridge and you would use it within a few days and it would be fine. And it would be the same rule would apply. You have to bring it to a boil and then just keep that lid on with a low medium boil on it for about 10 minutes. And even 10 minutes, you know. If you need to add just a tad bit of water in there to prevent it from burning, you can do that too. Okay, so when you do this stuff, technically you want this kind of cheese. You want the real deal, okay? Now, at first I bought shredded Parmesan, but it's just better to do it this way. So I went off and I got, I don't know, they hardly had anything. That's all they had. That's all that was left. So I bought what was left. So we'll start with the one, probably with the sour cream first, because that's the most simplest one. And then later on, when I get a chance to buy more of this, then, or I don't know, it depends. If I can, it depends how much it's going to take to make this recipe. If I have one left, then I can get in right away with making the other recipe. Either or, I'm going to try it out. And if it works really good, then it's one of those condiment things, okay? Just like when I can my salsa sauce or whatever I'm going to can with my lug jars, right? And because I was out, I ended up buying cans of tomato sauce, flavored for cheese, herb and garlic, those kind of things in cans, to which at some point I will probably go out of my way to recan at least into pint-sized jars before I'd put those cans away for long-term storage, because they are in cans. They would be more successful sitting in a jar like this for any length of time than they would in the original can itself, because the acid eats through the can. It also creates that oxidization, which accumulates at the top of the lid, makes it black, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the food is contaminated, okay? The way you would know is by looking at it, first of all, and it would definitely look spoiled. And you'd smell it, and it would definitely smell terrible. Then you know it's spoiled. Other than that, you just heat it up like anything else, okay? And yeah, you can take your finger and you can go like this and it moves. You can scratch it off a bit. Okay, eventually you can basically wash it. But it's just oxidization. So I just don't want you to be afraid of that. But if you're buying tomato sauces and those kind of things for the purpose of putting them away long term, you might want to consider rejarring them up just for that reason. To which peaches, apparently, what I've been coming across, do not sit well long term in a quote unquote can, but they will sit long term very well in a jar. And you remove them away from the tin so that the longer that the fruit sits in the container, if it's in a jar, it's not picking up a tinny taste. So that's another one that you might want to consider rejarring. So I'm going to be rejarring certain products. Obviously the peaches with some of these dent cans from Dole with the tropical fruit or whatever, right? And then I'll be recanning the hot little jalapenos, that Rotella freaking sauce, and I'll just bring in more fiber like red peppers and onions and just whatever, make more of a thicker salsa, and then take those cans, open them up, assuming that I like the taste, and then mixing them in with my salsa, and then it just kind of, you're just making the batch a little bigger, and you're kind of bringing it to where I guess you could say to your taste, versus having to rely on what's on the market when it comes to, you only have so many choices. And then if you like it after the fact, go through some of the jars, then do it again. If you find that it's not working out, then replace it with something else. Like, I have all these beans in my house, and I've been, I watch these women with their cooking videos or whatever, canning videos, and some of them are canning Boston baked beans or just baked beans or whatever, and I've never really gone out of my way to can beans. I made chili with beans, but even then it was, minimal, right? And it's easy enough to go off and buy canned beans, to which I have in the house. However, a quart-sized jar, or even a pint-sized jar, of baked beans with the flavor, or whatever, Boston baked beans, whatever. So I'm thinking to can up 6 quarts of beans, Boston baked or whatever, right? And a few pint size for upstairs, and then downstairs my son can access that, and he can make, and I'll just even do a few jars of just beans, I suppose, so that if he wanted to make bean soup, he could do that, right? And see if that's a good way to get people eating more beans in the house, because it's convenient. I would do it for convenience purposes and easy access, so that it can start being built, brought into the main diet within the staples of the house. So I want to do some beans. Not many. Hold on a minute. Yeah, way too much glare, people. Yeah, not good. Anyway. Okay, so now when I do these, right, I am going to try after the fact, all right, as a comparison. Parmesan that you shake, right? Maybe I'll try with that just to see. If you buy them already, Parmesan already shredded in a grocery store, and you use that to make your Alfredo sauce, apparently it doesn't process very well. And that's in part because they spray it with, I guess, some kind of oil to prevent it from sticking, so that when it's in the bag. So, I mean, if you had no choice other than to find that kind of Parmesan cheese, being that these were the last two that I could find, right? Lucky me. You could maybe just blanch it, right? Just have a boiling pot of water and throw your processed Parmesan shredded cheese into it. Just give it a quick whew, and then run it under cold water and rinse it off. Well, just start rinsing it off and then turn it cold very quickly to wash off that oil. So I might try that just to see, right? And it same is true, I would think, if you only have no access, only except maybe, you know, you go into your pantry and you find a shaker of Parmesan that's been sitting there in its original container for years, and you want to try that, right? Then I would just maybe, in a situation like that, maybe put it in a strainer and then pour boiling water over it and just move it around quickly with a fork and do it again, and that will wash away that initial oil, so that when you do go off and make your Alfredo sauce, right, it blends in better. So we're going to use all 100% natural ingredients for the first 1 or 2 batches, and then we're going to pencil in a third batch where I'm going to go in the house and look for an old that's in my bedroom, right, and repurpose that into something else, and then we got the 3 different recipes that we can make comparison to. Okay, so that's on the roster to do over the next month, right, to 2 months. Now, when I said can you tell? I don't want to get up and go moving around in the kitchen. First of all, everything's glaring back at me as if, and I'm tired, because I did yard work. That one day out there pooped me out, and now it's raining, and I can't go outside. I was maybe going to go out on the weekend, but apparently it's going to be raining all weekend, and, you know, I'm under with that whip on my back, right, to have this all done by the end of the month, right, as it's pouring rain out there. Yeah, okay, so my heart's going like this. I'm freaking out, and I'm like, don't get freaked out, just pace yourself. Just pace yourself through it, you know, you'll get through it, right? You know exactly what you're doing when it comes to out in the back and organizing it. And it's not as bad as it looks, because it's not. I will be repurposing. As I'm coming across things that just whatever I'm putting out in the front, and slowly but surely people are picking away at it. So, I'm not done doing that yet, I don't think. Okay, so then I went off and I bought, do you see? A whole bunch of them. It was over, I don't know, 50 bucks, 60 bucks. They were coming in at $2.49 a can. Okay, that's a good price. You'll get a pint and a bit. Okay? So I'm going to end up recanning these. And I have different varieties. And I'm going to recan them, the majority, into this size. And I'm going to make them just as available as the Alfredo sauce. However, I took my bacon and I hid it underneath my bed in my bedroom. That's crooked. I don't want to share my bacon with my family unless I get to cook with it first. No, I don't really have a lot of room left in Auntie Shemay's room, but kind of, because I know if I put that down there, you know, I don't know, I need to make it where things are available for my son, and, but by the time I'm done, I'll have more than enough, put some downstairs, and I put them in my room for convenience, because I'm convincing myself that I'm going to use them regularly, right? And I just put them out of the way where it's nice and cold right now until I can get Auntie Shemay's room more organized. The point is when I went out and I bought the can of this, right, and whatever, I was in the meat section looking for salted pork because I want to can some beans. I want to do Boston baked beans. I want to do baked beans with salted pork or whatever, and he says they don't ever get salted pork. The butcher said they never get salted pork, and I said, well, what do you think would be a good alternative? And Anyway, we ended up settling on corned beef, to which I did buy a little bit of corned beef. So I'm going to can some Great Northern beans in some sort of a bean sauce with, what is that called? Oh, my son's out there rattling around. With corned beef. Instead of salted pork, I'll use corned beef. And then, being that I was in the meat section, he came and he said, well, what about a ham hock? You know, we haven't gotten these for a long time, and there's one in now, right? It's going on sale. And I'm like, okay, show me. So it's a ham hock. It's quite big, smoked ham hock. And I said, well, do you have any bacon on sale? He said, no, next week. I'm like, okay. So next week, I'll go back, and I'll buy some bacon on sale, depending on what they've got. And I'll use that ham hock with bacon to can some more of those salmon-sized jars of grease and bacon and ham hock for crock pots and that kind of stuff, right? As a additive. So I'll do that too. And then once I've done that, then that will be another 1 or 2 more cases, and then I'm good. And then some will sit upstairs and some will go downstairs. Now, whether my son ends up using it or not remains to be seen. I don't know. Right? He might, if he knows what to do with it. If not, I won't have to worry about it for a long time. So when you're going on a can hunt, look for cans that are like corn, peas, those ones, you know, can sit fairly long. Beans, they can oxidize, and after a long period of time, maybe start getting a tinny taste if it sits too long in a can with beans, that is, right? And be careful of the type of fruit that you plan on putting away long-term storage with cans, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't buy them and then recan them. Okay, to which that's what we're going to do. Well, I'm going to do when I get the, you know, just I can only do so much in a day. But I'm winding down with this stuff, right? It's not, you don't see me buying wheat no more. I still have a bag of wheat there, that Comet wheat sitting there. It needs to be repackaged up. I haven't done that yet. It's just patiently waiting. Yeah, and I've got the northern beans already in a bucket, but before I take down the bucket, I think I want to try and can some for convenience purposes. And, you know, I'll give my son 1 jar. I'll keep 1 jar, and I'll tell him, you try it out. I'll try it out. And then if we like it, then of course we'll use what we have. And then make plans to make more. If we don't like it, then we don't do it no more, right? Same thing with the Alfredo sauce. That's why I want to try different recipes, just to see what's the matter. Just to see which one, you know, is more likable in terms of texture, taste, whatever, right? One woman says if you use nothing but cream, it comes out too thick. Where, you know, she ends up using milk and half, but mind you, she's using butter and cream cheese, which would compensate for the heavy cream. So, you know, but it would also give different flavor. So I don't know. And as for butter, it's not really necessary, honestly, to can it, because butter, you see, that's the thing. Butter, you pressure can for 75 minutes. Okay? What did you do? Huh? Butter, you pressure can for 75 minutes. If you're putting it into an Alfredo sauce, but you're only bringing up that pressure in the pressure canner to a 10-pound pressure and then turning off the stove and letting it go back down, you didn't even pressure can it for 2 minutes, before you turned off the pressure canner, because that's basically how they're canning these things, because they're trying not to caramelize the milk, right? Oh God, I gotta go see. Hold on a minute. What's your issue? What did you do? What did you do? What? Oh, you got your leg caught up in the blanket. There you go. Oh, yeah. Snap. Oh, boy. Oh, terrible twos. Is that what that is? What's going on? Huh? Yeah, you can't bounce off the couch, is that it? Right, here. What's that? I don't know. Well, what can I say? I don't know. You throw your toys around everywhere. Yeah, look. Yeah. Throwing them around everywhere. You keep your Nana on her toes. You keep Nana on her toes. Like, how does this all end up back here all the time? Yeah. Yeah. Are you bored? Mr. Cheeky. Mr. Cheeky. Yeah. Oh boy. Every now and then he just... So, I got my canning mapped out for the next couple of months. Everything I want to do outside of the Alfredo sauce and the chicken that needs to be cut in half and put in a jar today, I can spread it out. I can spread this out over the summer in terms of recanning, right? It's when you put it away for like 5 years or more, maybe even 4 years or more, that's where the acid starts to eat the metal. First, it's going to come out tasting tinny the longer it sits in the can, right? And then anything else after that, it will start eating through. We have that video of me getting into my cupboard where it can't eat through. So that's why I would buy, but I would never put away for long term. I learned my lesson. But at $2.49 a can compared to everything else around me made sense when I knew I'd do this. Right? This is just a experiment. So yes, so let's get back to the fat. So if you're going to go, now, there are people out there who can butter that do not use pressure canners. Right? Or if they do, they don't do it no more than 10 minutes or something. I don't know. I chose the 75 minutes because it's a fat like any kind of other fat when it comes to an animal. So, but knowing how they these women are canning this kind of stuff, right? And they're adding, it seems like, their own ingredients as they go along, because it's all rebel canning. None of it's been approved by the FDA, right? And a lot of it comes from generational canning, in terms of, well, my great-grandma used to do it this way, my grandma did it this way, my mother did it this way, and now I do it that way, right? So it's not, you know, I don't think everybody is just grasping things from a hat and just so they can get views on YouTube. I don't see that. But at the end of the day, if I want to pressure can butter for 75 minutes, but I'm adding butter into my jar that I'm only pressure canning for 2 minutes, because I bring it up just to the pressure and then turn off the canner and let it go down so that I don't caramelize the milk, right? But the butter's in there. But then there are people who can butter without a pressure canner. So, you know, and if they do it with a very limited amount of time. The key is that you heat it up and you just keep it at some level of temperature that could and would kill off any potential botulinum spores. Statistically, though, for the ones that read and rattle off them, in the United States of America, statistically, more people get foodborne illness, sickness, food poisoning, whatever, from this stuff. That's not this stuff, not this brand, just stuff, right? From stuff like this that comes already prepackaged, right? They get sicker more often with these kind of things than they do with home canning, statistically. Why? Is that because statistically more people buy this kind of stuff versus can at home? Well, the ratio would be more people go for the convenience before they would go out of their way to can for themselves. So, of course, the ratio would be higher in terms of the numbers of illness when it comes to opening up a jar, right? So, just keep that in mind. When you're buying certain kind of cans, you might want to put it in your head where you're going to have to either limit what you buy, because, you know, you don't want it to go to waste by letting it sit there for 6 years and then coming back and finding that the tomato ate through the can. Or you got to be willing at some point in the year to recan that food. So it would be more shelf stable, longer term. And you need to be aware of as to what kind of recipes are being passed around anywhere you go. It doesn't have to be just YouTube, because if you're going to do this for 75 minutes because it's butter, but you're only going to do this one for less than 2 minutes just at pressure and then turn off the stove, and there's still butter in it, then how have you not compromised what you believe in? So I might just remove the butter completely from the second batch in terms of I will use the cream cheese, but I won't use the butter, because if I want the butter, I can always add the butter when I open up my jar, put it in a pot and heat it up and start bringing it to, you know, that magic boiling point with the lid on to turn it down. Then I can add in my butter, even if the butter comes from another jar. Do you understand? Because at least this one we know was done at 75 minutes. Where milk seems to can differently. Okay? If you can can milk and make it pretty much as is, if you give it extra time in the canner, in the pressure canner, I don't know what that is, 10, 15 minutes more, it begins to caramelize, changes color and change its taste, and people have equated to evaporated milk. Okay? You can do cheeses, various methods. Doing hard cheese appears to make the cheese after the fact a little more gummy, where cheddar cheeses tend to melt, but mozzarella does not. So is it really worth canning mozzarella cheese when it might be more practical to dehydrate it? To which I would lean more towards dehydration. And if when in doubt, you can always dehydrate, put it in a jar after the fact, and if you really wanted to take it long term, you could just pop it into a freezer. Otherwise, it would be shelf stable for a very long time, depending on how much you dehydrated it and degreased it on cotton. Because when you shred any kind of cheese, it has oil. So when you put it on a dehydrator, you want to lay it on a thin layer of cotton. Some people use paper towels. Cotton is more natural, if you can find it, and make tray covers, right? And then the oils go into the cotton, right? But at the end of the day, it would stay much longer, I would think, and for what it's worth, doesn't matter. None of it matters, people. Right? I'm just trying to make it so it's convenient and people can get into a routine. Okay, and this section are your milks. Okay, so we know I'm not, for the second batch, I'm not adding butter. I'm going to avoid butter. And the first batch I'm going to use is just the straight up whipping cream with the sour cream with the fresh Parmesan and some salt and garlic powder. And then the next one I'll attempt with the sour cream, the fresh Parmesan, but I won't add in the butter based on my initial principles on how I would or could or have canned butter at that 75 mark. Not that it's apparently necessary, and that's where the debate comes in, because what works for one doesn't work for the other, and so on, right? And then I do want to do one batch with just shaking kind, or maybe shredded, pre-bought shredded, and I'd be curious enough to see what would happen if I either blanched it or just rinsed it with hot water before using it. If that would solve the problem of it clumping up, because apparently it clumps up or something because of that outer coating of oil. But if you kind of wash it away, that would probably be less of a problem. And then the tomatoes. Over the next little while. And I'm going to get the bacon, and I'm going to combine it with the ham hock that I have. I'm going to try that out. Alright, and then I'll give a few jars for my son to try out, see if he likes it, if he would even use it. I am definitely going to make an effort to use it when I get into this other stuff I plan on doing. And I'm going to do Great Northern beans in some sort of a bean sauce with corned beef instead of salted pork. And see what happens with that. As I'm now burning myself out in the yard. Right, I don't have the stamina like I used to. It's going to take me a while to build up stamina. Yeah, sure. Sure. Well, it's okay. The hardest of hard of everything is almost over when it comes to that yard. Well, I guess that's it. See, I'm tired. I don't want to do anything. It's hard to do things when you can't see very well, people. It's very draining. Yeah. It makes you tired because your brain is just on freaking overdrive like mad dickens. Yeah. And then when you add on extra work for yourself, seriously, I mean, because you know that's what I'm doing. I mean, I could have went off. Honestly, I didn't even need to do this. I have a cupboard full of classic Keo jars like this that I bought years ago at $2 or $2.50 a jar, that's now selling for more than $5 a jar. But the piano's in front of it. Can't get to it. But that's, no, whatever. This is different. This is for that size. After I do that, I won't have to do it again for a long time. And by that time, I probably won't even see anymore. So once it runs out, if my kids can't figure it out and know how to do it for themselves, then they could quite possibly starve. Yeah. Yeah. Because, you know, buying one jar here, one jar there doesn't necessarily save you anything. Sometimes you have to go out of your way to do it this way to get those long-term savings. Right? And you can't, you know, I don't want to get negative here, because I started thinking about my landlady, how, you know, everything is always up in the fucking air, man. I'm gaslighting myself. I'm beating myself up. Why are you doing this? Your landlady just wants you to... one way or another. And I don't want to beat up on my landlady. Blame her for the corruption, but she benefits from the corruption and within the housing market. I talked to this Rachel, the social worker. Let's end it on this note, okay? Since the subject was supposed to be the social worker, right? You know, the housing, you know, housing is an issue, right? Long term. Oh yeah, and I told her, you know, I wanted to get a lawyer for Amari, and I told her about court and what Judge Ross did by putting Amari in a silo, and that only a lawyer could ever represent him. But if I can't find a lawyer, no, I'd represent him myself. If that's what it took, blind as a bat, I'd try and do it, right? But, you know, I said this time next year, I'm hoping to be able to have, you know, a lawyer that I could have for him, right? Because, you know, he's going to need it in terms of, he doesn't, you know, people, this video's too long. You know, their attitude is, let the government look after Amari. That's the government's problem. If you can't do it, then, you know, put him in foster care and be done with it, right? Well, it's not like that, people. It shouldn't have to come to that, you know, but at the end of the day, he was injured at the time of his birth. This is what I told this woman. And, you know, I want Amari to have that private care along with the public care. And, you know, the issue of housing should never be a problem in terms of he's at the mercy of a government because, you know, whatever, right? And being that the government fosters criminal activity within the housing market, and the people that capitalize off of that and profiteer off of that feel that they have a right to do that, no matter who and how they destroy other people's lives, right? I guess that's what capitalism is about. And so anyway, she Googled, because I told her, like, when I Googled, tried to get find a lawyer for Amari, couldn't find anything. They all wanted freaking car accidents. There was nothing specific about birth injury. Apparently she Googled birth injury in British Columbia, Canada, And I don't know, she got some sort of websites here that she says that she can't vouch for as to whether they're legitimate or not. But apparently there's one called, as if I can see, Canadian Bar Association BC. Oh, that's Find a Lawyer. Oh, she gave me that as a referral, as if. Okay, that's what I told her. There's Birth Injury Alliance, Lawyers of Canada. And I guess they're located in Vancouver. That never came up for me when I Googled looking for somebody in BC to help me with the Amari situation. And there's another one there that maybe I can call. So if that's the case, well, you know, I've got $9,000 left on my personal loan because I wanted to top off with the food preps so that I could just hunker down and get us through over the next few years before they tear down this motherfucking house. Because you know it's getting tore down. But before they tear it down, they want to exploit every last dollar that they can get out of it just so that they can prosper while the ones that live in the house falter. That story hasn't changed. And that's why my life is falling apart. And there is no safe zone to go to when I leave this house. So, I will phone up these people next week. There's another number there, whatever. And if there's anything of substance where maybe they can help me, and I'm a little short on their retainer fee, because anytime a retainer fee is projected at me, it's always 50 grand or more. I can't get a lawyer to represent Uncle John unless I have 50 grand. I can't get a lawyer to represent Shmay unless I have 50 grand. Or even my family in general as a targeted family. They want 50 grand. I couldn't find a lawyer for birth injury when I made an effort to look for one because everybody was just interested in a car accident or a work safe, like a working environment, right? Outside of that, there were no birth injury lawyers. I was looking to Boston for one that has a YouTube channel, as if a lawyer from Boston would represent me. Right? And for Amari, that is, right? And this Judge Ross, with his judgment, you know, has made it where, and I understand why. And I told this to this social worker, this Rachel. I told her, I said, I understand why he did it, because, you know, it's just a matter of time before I'm gone. The last thing we need is a whole bunch of people robbing Amari's money, too. The money that should be there to house him and give him whatever he needs in terms of that many hands with help, right? Some of it has to come, like, with the hip surgery. Why can't we have hip replacement and have a different form of physiotherapy in there for him so that he will have a better chance of having less pain than what's being projected with this doctor who wants to cut into him now and can't guarantee that for this pain that he's trying to prevent, that he's not going to cause a lifetime of pain and injury for Amari. Where it could have been simply dealt with hip replacement, being that it's a long time proven medical procedure that's effective, and it does work with children like Amari with cerebral palsy under the right rehabilitation circumstances, people. But I live in British Columbia, Canada, and we know cows get treated like cows out here. So, we'll see what happens.